You're listening to Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz on the men's radio station. Hello, my name's Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz. Welcome to the men's radio station. In this week's Men's Speak radio show, I am sitting with my friend Nigel. And Nigel is a wellness guru with 13 years in the unhealthy health and wellness industry, apparently. It's already provocative. That led him to create the Alive and Thrive program for long-term sustainable health. Nigel's mission is helping others increase their energy and vitality so they can make even more impact in the world. And already I'm a little bit paranoid because I wonder whether these people who need increased energy and vitality are middle-aged men who are losing their mojo.
They most definitely are.
Really? So
yeah.
Do you mainly work with middle-aged men? Do you know what? Forget about them. Let's talk about you.
Definitely.
We can go to them later. Do you know, one of the main things I really like about you is I have seen you kind of like become a day-to-day life, modern-day hero. Let's start with this story. You told me a story about the way in the past you were very hypersensitive to what was going on around you and stuff like that. And then you noticed yourself standing in the street. So do you know what I'm referring to?
Yeah, no, it's funny enough. I was standing on Leytonstone Tube or Underground Station platform, and I just noticed that I was just like relaxed. For the first time in my life, I wasn't thinking about someone coming up and pushing me on the tracks.
So is that what you generally used to think? Like all your life,
I mean, I still get that glimpses of that now and again, but that whole thing of people waiting to pounce on me or some nutter ready to push me on the tracks.
So have you had these thoughts in your 40s?
I've had those as far back as I can remember. They've always been
30s, 20s, teens, even younger. I
don't think I've ever known a time really when I wasn't poised for some sort of attack or getting ready for a fight or something like that. Yeah.
So all your life you've been kind of expecting someone to do something. Yeah. So all your life you've been like hypersensitive, super sensitive, who's around, what's going on.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like being on alert 24/7, yeah.
Wow. And did people do this to you?
I think I didn't really experience anything unsimilar to what friends might have experienced, you know, the typical sort of rivalry of things. And I remember, you know, getting mugged quite a bit when I was younger. I remember going down to, back then, at the arcades in Leytonstone.
Right.
And it was like, you know, you would know to put your money in your socks or in your shoes. You get out some sweaty £20 note, give it to the cashier there, get on with that sort of thing.
Gross.
But, you know, you sort of knew these little tactics, which were survival, really, I think.
So it's not like you didn't want to be mugged. You expect to be mugged. You just didn't want them to take your dosh.
That's right, yeah.
Wow.
You know, it's one thing being mugged, but it's when you actually get the stuff taken off you, that's where the humiliation almost sets in.
So it was more about humiliation?
I think so, yeah. For me, the guys that were doing the mugging seemed to be much bigger, much older, just generally more experienced streetwise, maybe, I don't know.
When you say mugging, I guess I wonder about things like blood and broken limbs. And, you know, I've had a fear since I was very young about if I hit someone hard in the face, then I would probably have my hand kind of lodged in their skull, kind of feeling their thoughts between my fingers, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be so in trouble. And they're probably still alive. And, you know, how many Hail Marys is that going to cost?
Wow, that's graphic.
I know. These are the fantasies that kept me away from violence, because I also had a fantasy of, say, being pushed, banging my head, and then ending up some sort of a vegetable being fed by my mother, and her actually enjoying me being a baby again and kind of being trapped. But the way that you talk about a mugging is, it's not about the violence. It's not about, you know, death and guts and blood. It's about humiliation and 20 quid in your sock.
And it's about how you feel after it.
How?
Yeah. You know, even as a boy, I can remember feeling not man enough or not brave enough to take on the aggressors.
But there's one you And there's how many of them, plus they're bigger.
True.
But
Yeah.
this is more emotional.
I guess I just watched too many films as a kid, you know. I thought of Rambo and you know, it's just like taking on armies or whatever.
So your life was pretty much like judgment, attack, violence as normal.
I think I became really good at noticing way off down the road when anything possibly could happen.
See, you got super sensitive to your environment.
Oh, God, yeah.
And this was about blokes that might be a threat.
Yeah, essentially.
So you could sniff trouble.
Yeah.
So, personal question number one. Super sensitive to the attack of men. Were you attacked at home, in school, in your street? Was it that personal, or was it strangers mugging you?
I think I had some of that in my personal life. I used to kid myself that getting a good hiding now and again was actually pretty good for me.
Wow.
I felt it sort of toughened me up. And I think there's probably still part of me that saw some good that came out of me being kind of slapped now and again or whacked now and again.
What good, though?
Good question. I think it went into my adult life, which is I've sort of grown up with some of that. And if I've been out on the street and I've been belted in the face for something, then to some extent, when it comes to me again, maybe I'll be a little bit more conditioned. I'll be a little bit more ready for those type of things.
So the violence was to prepare you to avoid the violence next time.
Yeah.
And if you didn't avoid it, to not feel it as much.
And not feel ashamed that essentially shit myself if something happened. So it was to condition me, and my training ended up like that as well. It was to condition me against how I might react in those situations. So, you know, if, for instance, I looked into my future and I thought about being devastated by those things, perhaps if I put myself through enough torture and pain myself, when that shit comes around, then actually I'm like, well, this is nothing. I've been doing this for years, so you whacking me with something or you doing this actually doesn't really hurt that much because I've been doing all these different things.
Is that what they call kind of getting hardened to it?
I guess so. I mean, you see a lot of fighters, you see a lot of athletes putting themselves through a lot of intensity. You see them getting whacked and pummeled or training themselves into the ground.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the whole saying is you train hard in the gym, but easy in competition type thing. So what you're doing is you're pushing the boundaries all the time in your own space.
Yeah.
So that when you get into the ring, the contest or the fight, then you're that much more prepared.
So what's the story with shame? What type of reaction would be shameful and what type of reaction would not?
Well, I can think of a story where I remember some shame really early on. When I first got to high school, I was in the playground on my own. I was wearing my nice new blue duck fill jacket. I was feeling invincible because I weren't feeling the cold, you know. It's like I am the man in my
duck
feather jacket. And suddenly I felt like I'd been picked up and just slammed into the ground on the back of my head. And I can remember kind of blacking out and not seeing anything and sort of jumping up and just like the fear that I felt. It felt literally like I died right there and then. And then I got up and it almost felt like that shaped my experience for many years, which was I'm all on my own. I need to do this on my own and I need to be strong in case this ever happens again.
So that's when the hyper alert to attack started?
I think so.
And how old were you then?
I reckon that was the first year in senior school. So it was that early, yeah.
Wow.